Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
We have two guests today from Oklahoma. To my far left is Sam Scott, and to my left is Archie Sam. Both men live in Oklahoma City, and I'm going to ask each one of them to tell you a little bit about themselves. So, Archie, if you'll start first.
I'm a member of Cherokee tribe by law, I suppose, but by tradition and by blood, member of a Cherokee tribe, a Natchez tribe, and a Creek tribe. And I've been brought up in traditional manners. I've been taught some of the customs and history. I'm pretty well informed of all the traditional activities, and I consider myself a traditional. Not only that, I consider myself conservative traditional, and a little bit above that, I consider myself ultra conservative traditional, because I kind of understand my way of living, and I like to practice it to preserve a lot of history, a lot of ceremonies, and mostly the traditional heritage. And I'm glad to be here today.
Tell us where you were born.
I was born in the little town of Braggs, Oklahoma. It's the eastern part of Oklahoma, and the heart of the traditional people, and the Cherokee traditional people that that preserved and participated in a lot of the traditional ceremonial functions when it was just in a full participation. So that's what I generally like to do mostly.
Okay, Mr. Scott?
My name's Sam Scott. I'm Creek, full-blood Creek Indian. And of all my life that I can remember from my youth on up when I was just a kid, I was raised up around among my tribal people and around the stomp grounds. And as I grew up older, I participated in the stomp dances, and some of the dances that they have, I participated in some. And this is something that I have never been to, or I've never been around like this. It's kind of making me scary a little bit. Yeah. But when I'm around my Indians, I think I'm about top speaker at home. In fact, well, there's two of us. My brother, right now he's taken over. But I was at times that I was the main speaker on my stomp ground. And I was born and raised around Wetumpka. That's about 100 miles east of Oklahoma City. And my stomp ground is Alabama. That's where I was raised up at.
You didn't tell us the name of your stomp grounds.
Mine?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the grounds that I happen to be part of is called the Medicine Spring. It has quite a history because when their first Indians arrived in the state of Oklahoma, was Indian territory then, they had carried a lot of their ceremonial paraphernalia and ceremonial fire and everything else already over and established in what is now Oklahoma. But that ceremonial ground was established in 1839. It's still functional, and that's what I belong to. And it has a Cherokee name, and it has a Creek name. And Cherokees call it Nuwauti, and Creeks call it Ugehiliswa. That means water medicine. Whenever the fire was brought over, they located a sulfurious spring, and they thought they needed that water as part of the ceremonial functions, and they opened their grounds right close to it, and that's where the first landing of the ceremonial center in what is now Cherokee Nation. Of course, it had been moved twice since then, but it's still functional today as it was before. So the Medicine Spring is my ceremonial ground, which I belong to, which I happen to be one of the elders that keep the grounds moving and ceremonially functional today. Okay.
The class is going to have a lot of questions, I'm sure, as we go along. So I want now to invite them, if you have any questions, just general questions, not about particular songs or anything of that nature. If you want to know something about the Cherokees or about the Creeks or what a stomp ground is or anything like that, you know, feel free to ask these gentlemen because they're the experts.
I'd like to know what a stomp ground is.
Okay. She wants to know what a stomp ground is.
Whenever the first white man saw the Indian dancing, well, he said they were stomping. So he nominated stomp dancing. And stomp grounds is a ceremonial ground that's located in a certain village or a certain community or a certain area that everybody that used to come to perform their ceremonial functions. At the ceremonial grounds, the stomp grounds, that's where they had their, supposedly, something like City Hall. That's where all the decisions were made pertaining to tribal functions, be it economically, socially, historically, politically, whatever. It was supposed to be decided at that ground, and everybody do come there to hear the latest issue and, you know, to perform in their ceremonial functions, whatever it goes on. Stomp grounds is a civic center of an Indian community, historically. It's not so much that anymore, but that's what it was 50 years ago.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
can I ask you what tribe, what clan you're from?
What clan?
Mm-hmm.
I'm the Wind, and my daddy is a Tiger, and so my mother, she was a Wind. We go after our
Right.
mother.
Right. Is there a dance for the wind?
If there is, I never did learn anything about it. I never did learn anything about it.
There is one for the tiger, isn't there?
Yeah, I've heard that these others, they have
Mhm.
dance for the, you know, but I've never heard about the Wind. But it's possible that there had been at times, but like you say, you know, as generation went on down, well, we just lost track of it, you know, and it's the older ones before us, they didn't keep up with it, you know, and we probably lost it along the line there because they have dances for the all other clans of guys.
Well, you're Wind too, aren't you?
Yeah.
You both Wind clan. That's something.
Yeah, my mother was a Wind, which we take after my mother's side. My father was a Bear, so I'm a son of a bear. It almost sounds the other way, doesn't it?
Oh, well.
He started talking about the dances of the different clans. I don't know. I'm speculating that there is a Wind dance, which is because the song goes in the direction talking about animal, a skunk. Well, history traditionally, animal, a skunk is a Wind clan member. The skunk is a member of the Wind clan, and a rabbit is also a member of the Wind clan, and a rabbit is one of the sly, foxy old animal that the Wind people like to talk about because he's smart and he outsmarts everything, and he lives by his wits, not by the sweat of his brow. So the Wind clan people, they used to brag on that rabbit stories quite a bit, you know, because that's the way you tell when a member is talking. They talk about a rabbit being so smart and he does everything, you know, and gets by the being smart. So you know that you don't have to ask him. You naturally know that he's a member of the Wind clan. This is how we find out things.
What are the clans for the Creeks?
What are the clans for the Creeks?
Mm-hmm.
I'll let Mr. Scott answer that one.
Well, we have deer clans, bear clans, and, well, there's so many of them that I run onto some that I would never would have thought of, and they'd say they're like, what is it? Chihuahua has, would that be deer clan?
Deer, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Let me throw in a good one. There's a potato clan. Go ahead.
The renewal ceremonies that you do, like the green corn dance, you do them among the Eastern Cherokee, or I guess it's done everywhere, but not by all the people anymore. So do you consider that it renews the whole nation, or just the people that are involved in the traditions now?
That would be hard to answer. There is a tendency to revive there's new generation of people coming up that's never been involved, don't know anything about ceremonies. They become beware of the value that's attached to these ceremonies. And because these Indian ceremonies, I've always liked to say that they are the pure Americana. They're born right here. And it's so rich in heritage that they should be preserved. Well, this is a thing that this new generations are becoming aware of, and they want to be part of a ceremonial group. They want to learn the songs, they want to learn the dances, but they are in very precarious position because they have lost their clanship. They have lost their language. They have lost their image. They have lost their total concept of being an Indian. And traditionally, to be a member of a ground, some say you have to have a clan. You got to be a member of some clan to be a full participating member, and some of these people are in a position not to ever reclaim their clans because it's been lost through years. So we don't know what's going to come about, but it's going to be very interesting. And by the same token, that most of the traditional elderly people, they are reluctant to teach the new people that's been disoriented Indian way of life. They've been away from it so long that they just don't know anything about it. And perhaps, I don't know, I can't answer whether they'd be bad for the ceremonies or good for the ceremonies, but I have a tendency to believe that there must be some way that it has to be worked out, because a long time ago, say 30, 40, 50 years ago, they didn't have this problem, but they've got it now. So I think we're going to have to work out a system some way, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard to decide, because you decide to alienate those people, but they happen to be of Indian blood. You just can't, ostracize them. You can't just do away with them. And you have a love for them, and you care for them, you want them to be a member. So on those bases, probably that we may be able to work out a system some way that they can be a full participant. But right now, everything is just hanging in the air. I don't know who's going to make the final decisions. How are we going to, allow these people to come in that don't have any membership of no kind?
Okay, Beverly?
I don't exactly understand what a tribal town is. Could you more or less explain it to someone who doesn't know?
She wants to know
Okay,
what a tribal
she
town
wants to know what a tribal town is.
Okay, tribal town. One is a stomp ground. Another one is ceremonial ground, and another one is
Community center.
yeah.
It's all those
it's
things.
all one and the same.
All
It's
wrapped up.
just a matter of calling it what comes naturally to you, I guess. But it's all the same. Tribal town, stomp ground, ceremonial center, they're all the same. Because most of the Indians today, we don't call it stomp grounds or ceremonial center. They call it the old townhouse, because at one time they used to have townhouses on each one of those grounds, plus the square ground, and that's where they really actually performed the ceremonial dances. And in this house, where they talked about what I said earlier about economically, socially, history, whatever's got to be decided, they go in that house, they call it a council meeting. That's where all your laws are decided. But that's gone now. You only have the square grounds today, part of these ceremonial centers. Supposedly, I don't know if we ever have any enough interest, enough activities to bring some of the houses back or not, but I don't think there's anybody alive that really knows what did transpire at each ceremonial ground, what consisted of a ceremonial center. But there are records, there are old documents that tells you what was at each ceremonial ground long, long time ago. But it's not there anymore today. But I think they should at least reestablish just one for the purpose of educating people. And it certainly is part of this, what we call United States, and that's where it had its beginning. I think a lot of those things should be reestablished.
I'd like to make a point here that one thing when we're talking about Creeks and Cherokees in Oklahoma now, you have to realize that they were not always there, and that they were in the southeast, in the southeastern states, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, North and South Carolina, Virginia. That's about all. But in that area, and Louisiana too, in that area of the Mississippi, I keep forgetting. Anyway, that area of the United States. And that what we're talking about in Oklahoma was indeed the reestablishment of tribal towns after the move from the east in the late 1830s. when the government decided all the Indians should be shipped west of the Mississippi. And so the 5 tribes, the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole tribes were the largest and went on forced marches from the east to Indian Territory, which is now Oklahoma, and lived in 5 separate nations in Oklahoma, in Indian Territory, with their own constitutions, their own governments, and that sort of thing, with this loose organization of the tribal towns or districts from which to draw their constituents. So even though the people were transferred, they also transferred their way of life to the new land and started over again. So it's not unreasonable to think that it might start over again, you know, one more time. Okay, you had your hand up, Paul, go.
By what method is the tribal council ruled at this time if you don't have the tribal houses any longer?
It requires quite an explanation. And the way it went, of course, there was always been a policy of the United States government to destroy the Indian nations. And so they instilled a lot of ill interpretations of the law and cramming some of the new policies down the throat of the Indian people, and they threatened to punish them and various other things so they comply with the wishes of the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the government people. And they went into selecting tribal leaders by presidential appointment. Of course, that was one of the policies to destroy the Indian nations. And this one man ruled dictatorially, one man rule. And he didn't have to listen to no Indians or Indian people or village or anybody else. All the policy and anything that came out of Washington, D.C. that was conveyed to this one individual leader, and he ruled the Indian people. So council, per se, from the Indian representation did not exist, did not function. And that's the way it is today.
Even though the chiefs are now elected and the councils are chosen, well, for the Cherokees, they just had an election to choose a deputy chief and council members, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they also have a community organization by which delegates from various Indian communities can send people to this larger community representatives organization. They even send one from California, so it seems kind of unusual, because you would think that the Indians in California would be a little out of touch, but they do send one from the California community. The whole state has one representative. I don't know if that's working any better or not. You know, it's always the man at the top who makes the policy, spends the money, and that sort of thing. So I don't know if this new representative type of government for the Cherokees is helping or not.
Let me comment a little bit as far as the Cherokee people. It's been normal to be understood historically that Indian people are pretty much on their toes as far as having a government that's functional in the society today. Well, this wasn't so, because like Charlotte says that we have elections now. Yes, we do have an elections, but perhaps it's going to take 15, 20 elections for the Indian people to get involved in it. Right now, that it's going in a certain directions for over 100 years, that Indians are saying, well, it's the same thing over again. Why get involved? You're not going to have no input in it. You're not going to make no policy. You're not going to have no say-so. So what? This is the feeling of the Indians today. But in due time, I think the Indians will be involved in it. The policies will change. And the chiefs and the people in the various capacities dictating the guidelines of the Indian people, they still pretty much government-oriented people. They don't represent people. But hopefully this will change in due time.
I think we ought to maybe hear some music. Do you have a song you want to sing?
Okay.
I heard you practicing.
Yeah, we practiced a little bit. We're going to sing for you some grounds call it the mother dance, some grounds call it the friendship dance, and it always, you see it almost any ground that you go to. It's been picked up, been danced, and in the Cherokee country a long time ago, they had one ceremonial day set aside where everybody came in and they're going to participate in this friendship dance. When they perform this dance, well, they sort of give up all their feuds, give up all their dislikes and any hates that they entertained. And when they get through the dancing, well, they all get their full membership and friendship in the community. So that's what this one song accomplished whenever they went into a friendship dance. And most all the ceremonial grounds now, they began their dances by members only, and whenever the dances is wide open for all the participation, well, they usually have this friendship dance. So now, we're going to sing this one song for you, and it's been around a long time, and we think that most of all the songs that we have today are very, very old, and we have a lot of strong indicators that we believe that most of all are our animal dance songs and of that nature that go way back before Christ BC period, maybe 100 years, 200 years, maybe 1,000 years BC. So we need to preserve most of these dances, and there is a strong possibility that we'd be able to preserve a lot of these old songs. I know that Dr. Heth here is pretty much involved in trying to preserve a lot of these things, and we need more people like her to get involved. So here's Friendship Song. Yahoo! Hoy!